Alright guys, today we are in West Virginia doing another round of real estate site visits. For context, I work as a real estate asset manager for a real estate investment company in New York. We own roughly 1,400 properties across the US and Europe, and my goal is to eventually build my own version of that company. And so as part of this job, we conduct these regular site visits to the various properties that we own in the US. And these site visits are really done, one, to understand the quality of our building, but two, more importantly, I think, is to understand the criticality of the building for our tenant, so that we know whether or not they will stay there, whether it's because their business is going under or because they choose to leave. So understanding that aspect is really important. So today, we're driving about an hour outside of Charleston, West Virginia. We've got about 20 minutes until we get there, and so I'm going to take you guys along to this site visit and see how these things are conducted. And this is something I think is really cool because as someone that wants to eventually build my own real estate investment company, it's opportunities like this that really, I think, exemplify the importance of working a job. I think a lot of times people want to go out, and I fell into this trap before too, of going out there, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner as soon as possible, but we forget about the value that working a job brings. And this is a good example of that. When you go out and start your own business, I don't think you're going to have the opportunities like this that a job may set you up for, to go out, test things, learn from people, go on these site visits, these opportunities where you're put into action of doing the actual work. So show you guys kind of what it's about. This is all about capturing the process and the journey of becoming a real estate investor. And so just to shed a little bit more light on what a day doing site visits looks like before we get there, typically we spend just one day in the market. We won't stay overnight. So today I was in the first flight out of New York LaGuardia, layover in Charlotte and here in Charleston. That's typically what we'll do, even when I go to far places like Texas. I'll be the first flight out in the morning, tour 3 to 4 different sites, spend most of the day there, and then be in an early or late afternoon flight out so that we're back home by evening. We don't own too much in West Virginia, so today is just this one site. I'm gonna spend some time at the site, talking to the facility manager, and really try to learn about the building and their operations there. Should be a quick one, and we'll take a 4 p.m. flight out back to New York LaGuardia. All right, just arrived here at the facility. It's a roughly 200,000 square foot industrial warehouse facility leased to a tenant that distributes medical equipment. So think things like PPE, masks, stuff like that. The business did really well during COVID, but in recent times, as you can imagine, that demand has come down and this company has definitely felt it. So it will be good to learn about how the company is doing financially today when I meet with the facility managers. I think I won't show too much of what's inside, but I'll recap you guys when we come back out. So I'm editing this video. I took a few generic interior photos, and I think the best way for me to showcase what's going on in a site visit is for me to talk through each of these photos. So this first photo is a general section of the warehouse. There's racking, large open space so that goods can move around. The racking kind of resembles what you see in a Costco or BJ's, where goods can be stored on multiple levels. Here in this building, it's not very well utilized. It was only roughly 60% utilized. And we use that to gauge, is this building one that the tenant really uses, or is it kind of just a backup building? We can also draw conclusions or inferences whether or not the tenant's business is doing well, or if there are credit concerns, or if they're going through a down cycle. The second picture is an area of the loading dock area. So open space where goods are stored on pallets before they're moved onto trucks. The trucks back into where you see the garage doors are, and goods move on and off of the trucks. So we observe building features when we're on the site to see if our building has the necessary features for a tenant. Is the building functional for their use? If it's not very functional to them, then they will likely seek a different building when their lease expires. The third set of pictures here are related to building condition. So when we're on site, we pay attention to the building condition. Here you'll see there's various cracks that I observed in the building slab and foundation. It's important to pay attention to the quality of the building so that we understand as a landlord whether or not we need to invest additional dollars to re-tenant the building or to gauge whether or not the tenant has been taking good care of our facility. All right, we just finished up the tour. It's about 12:50, so that was about an hour that I spent talking with the facility manager and then one of their regional managers as well. Came right back, noted down some notes in my notebook so that I don't forget them before I get to the office. But overall, super productive type of visit. They were both very open and comfortable sharing sort of things about the business, which is all that you can hope for. You want to hope for facility managers that are willing and knowledgeable to speak about the facility and the business. I think two main takeaways from this visit. One, not so good, is 3 of the walls are experiencing cracks at the foundation. And this building was only built in 2016 or 2017. So for a 7-year-old building to be experiencing cracks like that is not a great sign for the site work and the foundation. And that's important for us to pay attention to because typically it's a site. A responsibility like that is something that falls on the tenant. They need to repair and maintain, things like that. But it's important for us to consider here because if the tenant goes away, if they go bankrupt, they're not going to be the ones paying for that. We're going to have to come out of pocket for that cost. And it's something we have to do. It's not something we can put aside because a new tenant is not going to move into a building that has a sinking or cracking foundation. Second main takeaway is a little bit more positive. And that's in speaking to these facilities guys about how goods here and how this distribution center interacts with their other distribution centers. It seems like this center is, somewhat critical. It's not the most critical, but somewhat critical in the sense that they handle a lot of the transfers of products from one site, some of their hubs, to other sites. And they also carry a lot of supporting materials to service large markets like New York City, for example. And so it's good to hear that this site isn't just all overflow inventory. That's a tough thing for landlords to hear because when your facility only carries overflow inventory, then those facilities are the first ones to be cut when a tenant needs to downsize their business because those are all, unnecessary. Those are all just extras. And this is really the investment strategy that my company focuses on. Mission critical real estate is what we call it. Assets that house critical operations for tenants so that the site is sticky for them, so that the chances of them moving out are less, because really the best outcome for us is when we keep them in as a tenant. So another successful site visit in the books, I would say. I've got a few more coming up in the coming weeks. I've got to go out to Detroit, Tennessee, and then potentially Ohio, all industrial sites. And as a side note, a few weeks ago, I made a video about why I think it's so important to work a job first before starting your own business. And in many ways, I feel like today's experience was the perfect exemplification of that. By working a job, I was able to have this opportunity to learn how to analyze a real estate investment, walk the site, understand the real estate, understand the tenant's criticality of a business, all of which is going to be directly applicable to when I start my own business, and fill in the blank with whatever business you're looking to do. But when you work a job that is the business that you want to do, you get the direct guidance and mentorship from the people that have been doing this for many, many years. On top of that, getting a visit a place like this, West Virginia, so different from New York, where I'm living, Boston, where I grew up. I mean, those places don't look like this, and the people think differently. And being able to be in these locations, interact with those people, you gather new perspectives about how things work, where there are opportunities, where there are holes in the market, stuff that you wouldn't be able to recognize if you're just in a hole, in a bubble, I should say, of where you live. Oh shit, look at that deer. God damn. Certainly don't have that in New York. But anyways, on that note, if you guys want to check out the thoughts, it's my most recent video on my channel. You can go check it out for the full thoughts on that. But in the coming weeks, we've got a ton of more site visits coming. I'm going to go out to Detroit and Tennessee, and then potentially Ohio as well. So stay tuned. I'm going to try to take you guys along to all of that, and you guys can follow the journey to building a massive real estate investment company.